all as out of breath as me?
Oh my god, my jaw hurts. I've been clenching my jaw.
Look, in the words of Blythe, my job tonight is to channel her emotions for this one because she's still teary-eyed.
I can't catch my breath. How emotional. I can't just fathom what I just watched. I think it's the best episode, hour and 18 minutes I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, that was
that was incredible. That was incredible. That's lived up to the hype.
Yes, every bit of the hype.
That was something else. Let me start off by welcoming the Short Box Nation, and of course new listeners to a very special Game of Thrones series of episodes that we've been doing. This is going to be our reaction and review episode for episode 3 that just happened. We're still reeling from those emotions, but per the usual, it's going to be spoiler warnings from here on out. So if you haven't seen the episode, please do yourself a favor. Do not go any further. We're about to jump into it. I do want to say that this episode is sponsored by Hot Pies Catering. So that's the one lame joke I've got for this very somber episode. But yeah, we're about to jump in, folks. I do want to remind you guys to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date for the rest of our Game of Thrones reviews and future content. We will have a bonus interview episode just like we did last episode. This one will be with my interview with Miltos Yerolemou, who plays Syrio in Game of Thrones. I thought it was mad appropriate considering what happened this episode. So stay tuned and we'll have that bonus interview with Miltos Yerolemou, the actor for Syrio, at the end. Ashley and Ed are dialed in. Ashley, Ed, hey, how are you guys doing?
Yo, what's up?
All right.
Word. And of course, I've got Blythe Brumleaf here with me as well.
Hello.
Still living. And fans, as you can tell, there's a lot of sighing going on because, in all honesty, I think we all could have used another 15 minutes to just get our emotions straight. But we're jumping right into it. So let me go ahead and start off with a question that we've been leading with for the last 2 episodes. How is everyone feeling, and what are you processing at the moment? Ashley, how about you lead us off? How are you feeling? What are you processing?
I'm all right. I mean, there's a couple of characters that I'm super happy that they're alive, but I feel like they killed everybody so close to the end. They kind of hit us all at once.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm real upset about that Lady Mormont.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was crazy. Ed, how are you feeling? What are you processing, man?
There's 3 more episodes, guys. I don't know if I can do this.
There were moments of this episode. I sat on my couch and cheered.
Yeah.
And cried.
I've only seen her this emotional during a Jags win or a very bad loss. So this was pretty interesting to see. See again, we're not even football season. What I'm trying to process right now is, what the fuck am I doing to myself this weekend? I went through such emotions at the Endgame show, and now I decided to sit through another very heavy, emotional, experience. Man,
oh my God.
It's a great time to be a nerd this weekend, and it might go down in history, but holy shit.
Very stressful.
Yeah.
Very stressful
I'm looking
weekend.
forward to going to mundane work tomorrow just to not think, How about standout scenes or favorite moments that kind of come immediately to your mind, and then we'll work our way through some of the smaller scenes. Ashley, once again to you, what was the standout scene for you? What are you still thinking about?
So of course, I'll do my favorite scene and my worst scene. So the worst scene was the Lady Mormont. It was so heroic, and I just wanted her to live so badly and to live this big, long, beautiful life in Westeros. And she just went out, she killed the dragon, and it was just so, she's just such a valiant character and just such a tiny little girl. I'm probably gonna not be able to sleep because of that.
Aww.
I know.
Yep.
I think my favorite scene was when the Hound was kind of wussing out. He was
your boy.
Yeah,
I don't think I think he doesn't really care if he dies at this point. I feel like he sort of is well, I'm not gonna let someone kill me, so that's why he's alive. But then when the guy's Arya, do this for Arya, and he kind of just ran, I was oh, that was awesome.
It was Blythe was playing 6 Degrees of Separation because she was like, Arya killed the Night King, but it was due to Hound, like saving her life, which was also due to
Barrick.
Oh yeah.
Was hyping him out of it or hyping him up to save, because there was that one scene that Barrett kept trying to get him out, make him snap out of it, his fear of fire and just fear, I think, of death. And then he looks over and he sees Aya, and then that's what Barrett, uses Aya to make the Hound sort of snap out of it. And if not for those two characters, I think for sure that the Night King would still be alive.
Real quick, Ed, before I ask for your favorite scene, let's run down exactly who died this episode. Life.
So the first one we saw die was Ed, who the Night's Watch, where they told him how many times to burn his body so he wouldn't come back as a White
Why did they
Walker.
burn all those bodies? Oh my god!
I don't think they had time
actually,
to
if
think
we're going to
about
be
that.
honest, we saw the entire. What
Dothraki
is
first.
it?
Dothraki,
Oh
yeah.
my God, that was amazing.
Oh, they're gone.
Yeah.
That
So-
whole battle scene and seeing all the lights go out.
2
that
seconds.
was
Oh my god!
terrifying.
So,
What a
all right,
build up to,
so we got Dothraki dead first.
Yeah, the Dothraki.
Followed by Ed.
And then who else did we see? We saw R.I.P. Jorah.
Yep.
We
Jorah.
saw him die.
Yeah.
Theon
Yep.
obviously died.
Barrick.
And Barrick died. Those were the pivotal deaths, and then the entire Dothraki.
And of course,
race.
and Melisandre too,
Yeah.
but that
Oh,
was
she
by
was-
The Unsullied.
Yeah,
Are there any
true.
Unsullied left?
Besides
Besides Grey Worm?
Grey Worm is still alive.
surprisingly. Okay, so we got the dead out of the way. Okay, so we got the dead list out of the way. Just wanted to clear that up. Ed, what about you, man? Favorite scene or moment that you're still reminiscing on?
Man, I gotta say, I mean, it's hard to pick one moment, but I agree with Ashley. The Lady Mormont, just that last scene charging the giant and basically killing the giant and dying at the same time. That was such a great David versus Goliath type of scene.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. There's so much good in this. Like, I liked how claustrophobic, I guess, the battles were, even though it was in this big open field.
Mm-hmm.
Like when the undead were basically trying to jump over the Unsullied when they're blocking them and trying to stand the ground, and they're just like crawling over it. Just you're like right in the middle of it, like right behind them, and it's just so. It's like you're trapped in a room.
Yeah.
It's just the way it was shot, that, and the way it was so long but not dull. It was like kind of like the featurette when they were talking about how to put together this scene, but just that whole, from the Dothraki, just you're fired up because they're going in, and we've seen how they just kind of cut the Lannister army down like butter when they fought, and they did nothing. They just hit a wall and ran back.
No,
but
good.
yeah, there's a lot of
and
great
we'll
scenes,
work
but those are the
through
ones.
and we'll work through a good bit of those. But I just wanted to hear like the ones that are still stand out in your head right now. Blythe, what about you?
I want to say it's a couple. I don't want to go for the obvious with Aya stabbing the Night King, because that just came out of nowhere, and I felt like I was literally at a sporting event, like cheering it on, and it was just an unexpected, right? It was just an unexpected just action that came out of nowhere, and she killed him with the cat's paw dagger that echoes back to season 1, which was the same dagger that was supposed to kill Bran, and he gives it to Aya. So that scene stands out tremendously. Also, I really loved the dragon battles and sort of the dragon silhouettes with the moonlight overlooking like the winter storm. I thought those were some really cool shots.
I gotta add,
very disorienting.
Yeah. I'll add to that scene too, because I think I had said, whenever they were flying in the skies, that was the first time we had ever really seen like the night sky in Game of Thrones.
True.
And so for me, something about like that scene and how unique it was to everything I've seen in Game of Thrones. I thought that the scene really definitely caught my attention. It just visually looked really, really, really pretty. It was like, the moon, the clouds were really like in this dope little
It was almost like they're above the winter.
Yeah, and it was like this kind of like unsurreal moment of like serenity and fantasy. You know, it was like this really gorgeous scene, but then you had like these dragons. So
the calm within the storm.
Yeah. And my other favorite thing, and it's not really a scene, but more so an element of this episode, was the score. The score was phenomenal.
I was gonna mention that.
I mean, like, there was parts in it that was like really tense only because the music was, and the only sound you heard was either like drum beats or like just a piano key. Like, I really got to give it to the score for this one. I think it carried like the emotions.
It even went to like, like silence to just ambient sound.
Oh yeah.
So it's really, it was real. The sound design was really well done.
Especially with the foreshadowing that you heard with the music, especially in the God's Woods when the Night King was showing up and you start hearing the Night King anthem. Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I definitely think they used silence to their advantage a lot. Because, I mean, it got silent, as the Night King. Anytime the Night King, like, stepped up. But even, like, the Arya scene was, like, just perfect amount of silence.
Like she's in the library, like, kind of hiding.
Oh, my God, dude.
Yeah.
The horror,
I couldn't breathe.
The horror elements to this episode. Like, it's a battle. It's a giant battle, but at the heart of it, it's like, well, the zombies are the fucking enemies, so it feels so. There's that horror movie element, and I think they definitely nailed it in that library scene. I don't think we've seen a scene like that in Game of Thrones.
And set the
maybe
bar
a little
for
bit
like
of the
any
Crips.
zombie movie that's coming out.
And to with like standout scenes, we got to talk about the Crips, because the Crips with the dead Starks breaking through their statues to come out and start killing people in the Crips blew my mind.
I was arguing about that with somebody, if the Crypt people were going to come back to life.
I didn't think it would.
No, that's not going to happen. It totally fucking happened.
Yeah. You know what? But I feel like this episode did a lot to like poke holes in a lot of like the theories that I was hearing prior. There was that theory about, the Night King doesn't show up at this battle. He flies to Winterfell, or King's Landing, burns it down. Not the case here.
Yeah.
The theory about Bran or the Night King possibly being Bran,
false.
False as we know it. He ends up getting killed. What else? The whole Crypt, rumor as well that the Starks in there are.
Yeah, my whole theory about Rickon chasing Arya, and turns out he's just gonna be dead.
Speaking about,
then like the Crypts being like kind of having that same magical protection that the wall did.
I'm
Bran the Builder built that too. So
and I'm really glad that we didn't see Hodor. I'm really glad that we didn't see Hodor as a white.
Look, seeing a giant, seeing the giant white was enough. I was like, oh, this motherfucker. This motherfucker. Let's try to let's do a little bit of a general play-by-play. We'll just go through the entire episode, and we'll kind of talk about specific moments or feelings that we were having. So we opened up with a bunch of isolated shots of a lot of the key characters, like Tyrion and who else was amongst the first scenes? Sam, yeah. So it was like a lot of tight shots,
like the isolated.
Yeah, just showing them like getting
ready. It was
ready.
like a nice like continuous shot until they rolled Bran through. Yeah.
And I liked how they made it. Like, I think tension is going to be the key word I use to describe this episode, because there were so many scenes where they made us wait, like just hold up, wait, the action's not here yet. Not yet. Like that opening shot where Jorah is at the forefront and the Dothraki are behind him. They've got like everyone just ready and just grimacing, and they just make us wait. And I think there's that scene where it opens up where we see that first, like that horse coming across the battlefield, and I think me and Blythe had the same thought. Oh, the White Walkers sent someone to whatever, parlay or negotiate or whatever the case might be, and guess who the fuck shows up? Melisandre.
I've come to bargain.
Yo, first of all, did she walk past like the White Walkers and no one said shit?
Why would they let her walk across?
She had a real flair for the dramatic, and that when she sashayed to the
yes, she did.
And she came solo. That's what I thought. She was going back to Volantis to get the rest of the Red Priestess, and come back and use all of sort of like the Red Priestess, Lord of the Light army in order to fight the dead.
She was basically like the cheat code this entire episode. Like she was the Konami
the game
cheat code.
Fire sword.
Yeah,
cheat code.
Exactly.
That didn't work.
And that was a hell of a present to show up with. Like, look, I know I'm late, but watch this magic trick. All right?
Fashionably late.
If all you boys pick their swords up, it's gonna light on fire. And that was one of my early favorite scenes. Was there was a visual representation of life with the Dothraki and the swords and the fire.
Yeah.
And then eventually,
fire and ice. Yeah.
That light literally like flickers out. It literally goes out, and we see a mass wave of just black whenever the whites start taking over. So also in this early scene is we also get to see Ghost again, but that
Little
was
Ghost.
They just,
We didn't see him
they
kill
just seem
anybody.
to like. Did they just George Lucas CGI him in, post production? It
I
just
think
seemed like he was
so.
hanging out there, but no one's like, he just doesn't seem to be interacting with any of the people, or it just seems like, oh, let's put him in there. I don't know. It seems weird. It seems a little weird to me.
And you don't know if
it
he
does
actually
seem
lived.
smaller.
Yeah.
We don't know if he lived. We didn't see him kill anybody. We didn't see him survive.
I think he's just gonna keep showing up as like a cameo.
They'll just keep CGIing him in scenes.
I will say that it was the CGI team and the directors of the show that they said they don't really know how to use the direwolves, and as far as like the CGI budget is concerned, they devote most of it to the dragons. They don't really devote any of it to the direwolves, and a lot of people thought that we would see what is Aya's direwolf. Nymeria.
Nice.
So
Good
we
save,
didn't see
Ashley.
her. So and people thought that you would see her and like their her pack of wolves in the battle too. We didn't see either of them.
Also, John and Danny had very weird timing to come save the day with like the dragons. It's like, why aren't y'all flaming these motherfuckers off the bat?
A lot, like the front lines.
Yeah, that was.
There were a lot of miscues.
I don't know why they didn't do like a barrier further out.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Because they could have done a lot more before that storm when they went after the White Walkers. Mm-hmm. And then that storm came out and just kind of disoriented everybody. And
shit, that storm was disorienting me. That I will say there was those scenes were probably my least favorite because they were so hard to follow. It was taking me out of it a lot. I was just like, man, I can't fucking see. And I get maybe that's how we're supposed to experience like what Danny and John are feeling, but it was just hard to kind of watch on TV. Maybe if it was in like a cinema and it was a bigger screen, maybe. But Blythe, I know in this earlier in this first half, you were yelling at the TV. Why the fuck was Sam on the battlefield?
I kept yelling, Sam, get your ass to the crypts. I cannot believe he stood out there for as long as he did.
He was going to the crypts.
He's got a baby to protect,
What's
a girlfriend to protect.
What does he need to prove?
He's in my Deadpool, too. Most importantly, he's in my Deadpool.
I swear to God, I was second guessing this as if it was the Jaguars were playing on a Sunday, because I'm looking at this and I'm like, why aren't y'all using the trebuchets? Why did you only dig one trench? You should have dug more than just one, because the White Walkers just walked right over it. I was second guessing or I guess armchair quarterbacking a lot of these decisions that they made with this battle.
Did you like freeze the screen and have one of the like the play-by-play people use
with the little
like
circles
and O's?
Yeah.
What the fuck are y'all doing?
Ashley, what was going through your mind in this kind of opening kind of scene with them initially fighting the White Walkers, the Dothraki being defeated, and the general retreat? What was going through your head? Any scenes that popped up to you?
I mean, I think when I first saw them lining everybody up, and you saw all those main characters on the front lines, I was like, get back.
Yeah.
I was like, you shouldn't be up front like that.
Run away.
And then it was the timing. The timing was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Because you're like on the edge of your seat, just like, not knowing when something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then it just turned into chaos, which was,
good work. Very good work.
A perfect battle scene.
It was very apocalyptic. It was like end of the world, how dark and
it's like, this is hell. This is hell.
Dude. Well put. Well put.
Yeah, it's like, this is like, there's no hope. It's like, they are so screwed. This is, how are they getting out of this?
So while we've got that going on, we also get to see a couple scenes of Sansa, Tyrion, Missandei, and a few of the others in the crypts. And Blythe, you brought up a good point about it being a pretty good parallel to the episode of I think Blackwater Bay when Cersei was up in the Red Keep with the her handmaidens and whatnot, and her plan was, look, if our doors get busted down, I'm killing myself and my child.
True.
And Cersei in that episode is very like, look, enjoy the wine, like it's either we make it or we not.
Right.
But this was a very like stone cold, like solemn Sansa.
Well, you saw, as far as Sansa is concerned, I was really worried that she was witnessing the battle at the beginning. And I said,
me
get
too.
your ass down to the crypts, girl. You cannot fight. You are the smarts. You are the political leader of this not franchise, but this culture, the North in general. Get your ass to the crypts. And when she finally got down there, her and Tyrion had a little bit of a moment. They finally addressed, sort of their marriage, and they make sort of that funny that funny little joke about, you were the best out of all of them, and Tyrion gets upset. Well, thanks. I think that's a compliment.
Well, that was a pretty shallow pool, though.
Right? It's not tough competition.
Terrible dating trap.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But you kind of expected her to be the one to start maybe like singing hymns, and that's what she did in the first season. Yep. She didn't do that this time around. She just sort of let just the real talk fly, and then you hear you hear the whites at the door, and you hear the soldiers screaming, let us in, let us in, and nobody's obviously gonna open up the door, but then the dead Starks start coming through, and her and Tyrion just stay calm, and then they pull the dragon glass out of their coats or whatever out of their pockets. And at first I thought that they were going to kill themselves. I thought that they were just going to
I thought that too. I thought all right, it's like a zombie movie where the guy shoots himself.
And I thought, okay, well maybe if they kill themselves with dragon glass and they won't come back as whites, like that was sort of my line of thinking. But no, they took the dragon glass out, and then they went out to fight. But luckily, they didn't need it for very long because the other Stark sister came in to save the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to also highlight, because around this time, we get the retreat happens. They light the torch. Of course, Missandei, once again, looking like the Phoenix Force, comes out of nowhere, lights the trench for them, saves them once again. But the Night King with the master plan, like the level of expertise and just brilliance he has as a tactician, and from afar away, because this is around the same time that we finally get the dragon fight, which was pretty fucking crazy to watch. And the Night King can fight 2 battles on 2 fronts. All right, I gotta fight these fucking dragons. All right, just fucking pile your bodies on the fire and walk over each other.
They just had
how do they know how to do that?
Yeah, unlimited zombies to just throw at them. Because even like the White Walkers they're just watching everything. Too. So it's all been like everybody they've killed and everyone, all the whites just overrunning everything. It's just a rush.
And Ed, I like what you said about this feeling like hell, because there was just so much uncertainty. It felt like I was watching, just hell. It was like, man, I was so certain that Jorah would die, or Sam would die, or Bree and Jane. It was like they were just facing such impossible odds, and the struggle that you felt. And Brianna, real quick, her screams just like get to me for some reason.
She's like a tennis player.
She's like, I'm like, oh shit, she is. Someone fucking save her. But we also get that badass scene with Arya showing us why the hell she had Gendry make that spear.
Oh yeah,
God.
The detachable dragon glass spear, and she didn't even really need it at the end, because then she ended up just using the cat's paw dagger.
Hey, look.
Because we don't even know if dragon glass works on the Night King. We saw that the dragon fire doesn't work on him, which was a badass scene in and of itself.
Did he smile after the fire?
This Night King is. This Night King was out here to show out.
Oh man!
So we also eventually work our way to the Lyanna Mormont scene, where she takes a giant. And I'm sure that you guys probably stayed and watched the behind the scenes, but they said exactly what I was thinking about, how it was really symbolic that the smallest person on the show also ended up killing like the biggest, largest, baddest thing in the show, a giant who happened to also be a white. I thought that scene was pretty epic.
Yeah, you can also make that parallel to Arya killing the Night King. She's one of the smaller characters, and she beat the biggest threat.
House Mormont's off the map now.
Yeah. Oh man, that was man. I mean, like, it's just a testament to how even like the minor supporting characters just have such an emotional stake to them when they die. Like, she wasn't even on my list of consideration of like, oh, when we made our list, which we'll share later, but she wasn't someone that I even thought about. I wasn't thinking, oh, does she live? Does she die? Does she become a white? But it's just like where the show takes you. You never know who the fuck ends up dying.
I kind of thought she would live, but Jorah would die. That's where I thought the sort of House Mormont was headed.
Oh my God, wow. Okay, okay. I didn't get your statement at first about House Mormont, but wow, you're right. Damn.
Yeah, they're all out. Yeah, and they even like even they said at that post show, it was like she earned that scene, because she's such a, just from a performance standpoint, we got to do it better by this character.
Yeah,
it's something that
Can I put a gripe out there? The trebuchets. How long
were they up front too?
They used them once, and then the flame balls were lit up, and then they went out whenever the Dothraki went out to
even
ride.
hit anything. It didn't show them hit anything.
Terrible battle plan. Why would the Dothraki ride out there by themselves? No one gave them that order.
Everybody was behind them. It's like all the Unsullied were like behind them.
True,
aren't those usually in the back?
I thought they were inside of Winterfell, so they should be setting these motherfuckers off nonstop. Yeah. And they're not using. Yeah. They use them once.
I want to talk to the commander. Who's the commander?
What they were going to fight the dragon with, Night King's dragon, like throwing up dragon glass.
All right, real quick. Speaking about the trebuchets, I did also. I might have been looking too deep into it, but it was kind of cool to see how the Night King was able to take what they thought their greatest weapon was going to be away from them for that.
Oh, the trench.
Or just the fire. Just fire. It's, fire representing like life. It was like, damn, everything about this is just showing you like Night King being this wave of death.
And they said at one point.
Wait for it.
Like they're going to put out the fire. They're putting out the fire because that's what Melisandre had to come up and light up the trenches, and then it was other portions of it that they were putting out the fire that they were trying to set.
Yeah.
So in a couple different instances, the dead were putting out the fire.
Yep. So after that Lyanna Mormont scene, we also get that fucking awesome master hide and seek lesson from Arya. In the library. We also get to find out that she was probably a fan of whatever Splinter Cell in medieval times it was, because
I was thinking of Metal Gear Solid.
No, it's got to be Splinter Cell, because in Splinter Cell you kill them in silence and then you hide the bodies. I love that video game, by the way. It's probably my favorite video game series of all time.
Yeah, Metal Gear you do too. Yeah, you hide the dragon bodies to hide them.
When she rips the throat out of one of the whites.
I thought it was going to be a regular person. It's like, hey, are you old? Oops, my bad.
All right, I'm John.
Kind of stressful situation here.
You know what? But all right, so and that was a crazy ass scene thinking about it, because it was so intense with Arya in the library, and then Beric and Hound coming to find her. I kept thinking that Beric kept dying, but he kept like standing back up and like taking more stabs. I'm like, oh god damn.
I thought for sure he would give the kiss of life to someone.
Yeah.
Or they would bring
I was going to mention that because I haven't read the books, but I've watched a ton of videos about like his story, and like I said, it's like, who's he gonna resurrect? They were thinking it was going to be the Hound or Sansa or something, but it's just no.
And once again, man, it just I guess we could add that to the list of theories that they kind of poke a hole in anymore.
Yeah.
They also, they run into, after Beric and Hound end up saving Arya, they run into that room where Red Lady, once again, is just chilling. Calm as can be. We get her to foreshadow, of course, at that moment, that Arya, and I think, Blythe, you had took it, because the conversation was something like, oh, I remember you, you remember me.
I think it was
I told you that you would close the eyes of many people, close the eyes of, whatever, brown, green eyes. Right. And when she said blue eyes, I think we were both trying to figure out, was she saying that she becomes a White Walker, foreshadows that, or does she foreshadow that she's saying that, you would close the eyes of a blue-eyed person? And of course, we'd find that out later.
Also, credit to Sir Davos for not killing her ahead of time. Yeah. And she kind of stops him like, look, I'll be dead before the dawn. Just relax.
Yeah. Ashley, what did you think about that library scene or Arya this episode?
I mean, Arya was fantastic. I do like how, because Melisandre showed up and I was like, all right, well, do we really need her? And then she did like all the fire stuff.
Fire.
Yeah. And then, but she did give Arya the pep talk, because as soon as she said all that stuff to Arya, she
Not
just
today.
pieced out. Yeah, she just went running, and everybody was like, "Okay, well, I don't know where she's going, but," and then she just shows up. Yeah, she just took off.
Are you saying that's the theme? That was the theme of this episode. There was a lot of pep talks, so that might have, a lot of pep talks this episode. So after we got to see that scene of Arya getting the pep talk from the Red Lady, we also get to see that sweet and very confusing, on my part at least, dragon versus dragon scene.
Yeah.
When's the last time y'all seen a dragon versus dragon fight?
I don't think we've ever seen it in sort of TV history, or maybe even movie history too. I don't know that we've ever seen a dragon versus dragon fight.
What you think about it? They executed well?
Yeah, I mean, I named it earlier as one of my favorite scenes, just because we've heard about it. I think with the former Targaryens, and I think it was like sister versus sister during like the Blackfire Rebellion or whatever. I'm probably butchering all of those phrases, but that's what we've always heard about in the past. But to see it come to fruition in this episode, and then to see Viserion still alive, like you kind of thought Viserion died during the battle.
I thought he died. I didn't know what. So it was cool, but I had no idea what was going on. I thought he got like his neck ripped out.
Right, because then you see the Night King fall, and it's like, oh damn, like this is where the pivotal battle changes, and then Viserion just comes back, and he's sort of guarding the Godswoods.
You see like the blue fire, like Jon's fighting his way back into the castle, and then you see a blue fire go like, what? Okay, what's going on?
And then Theon is the real MVP. And that little pep talk that Bran gave him.
Once again, pep talk number 4 on this one.
Tells him he's a good man.
But hold on, we'll get to that part because we get the dragon versus dragon. Yeah, we get the dragon versus dragon fight scene. We learn firsthand that the Night King does not give a shit about your dragon fire.
No,
because
he smirks in the face of it.
Because not only does he smirk in the face of it, but he just—it's just the Night King is just. The way that he just carries himself, it's so fucking scary how calm he is. When he raises the dead.
Well, it's like Jason. It's just like kind of you're running from him and he's just slowly walking.
And I was really hoping, a
you.
part of me wanted to see Jon Snow fighting the Night King. I think that would have been a pretty badass scene, but...
I was ready for it.
I thought he was going to be able to run up on him in time, but... We learned pretty quickly. Jon Snow is a terrible runner. He can't run.
He's like still running, and like people are coming. Like,
exactly.
Okay,
he can't run back. He can't run. He can't run back to a dragon to save his life. He can't run up to the Night King to save his life.
This dude has like 9 lives, though. That's the thing. Like, how does he keep surviving all of these near-death experiences?
Well, it's weird because like before they cut away, it was like he was completely surrounded, like by the undead that the Night King raised, and then. When we go back to him, he's like fighting kind of like in an open area. Like, what just happened here?
Right. It's almost like
but it's like when he got Okay,
the whites almost have like 2 different settings. Like they're just like regular marching versus like crawling after you, wanting to rip your face off. There's only 2 levels.
It's so weird 'cause it's like they're staring at you, or it's like 28 days later, World War Z, where they're climbing over each other, crazy. Yeah.
But you know what, man? What I found this episode doing a really good job of is keeping us wondering about so many characters at the same time, because they would, and I mean, Ed, to your point, like they would leave you hanging, like. Jon Snow would be surrounded by whites, and then the next scene it'd be Jorah and Hound surrounded, or they would flash to like Jaime being overrun, and you're like, oh my god! I think Blythe, you had asked me like 100 times. Wait, was that Jaime? Is he dead? Wait, is Pod dead? Did Pod die? And you're like trying to keep track of all of this.
Like Sam is like in a pile of zombies.
I
like
swear like, between Sam and Podrick, I was gonna have a heart attack tonight.
And then, of course, I mean, I think the revival of all the deads. I mean, we saw Ed. You know, his eyes turned white, and then of course, like the punch to the gut was, of course, all the dead Starks in the crypt. Which I think we were asking last episode. I think I had asked, or Austin had sent like a text too, but the crypts were never fucking safe. like lesson learned. Like crypts not safe.
Well, they mentioned it 5
quick
times.
In here, where we can be cornered.
They mentioned specifically 5 times in the last episode that the crypts are the safest place in Winterfell. So you knew some shit was about to go down. When they say it explicitly 5 times in the episode.
When they repeat themselves that much, that's not going to work.
Right.
I will admit, for a minute, actually not a couple minutes, I was truly regretting putting Dani in my top 5 survivor list because I was like, she's dead. She's fucking. When the zombies started overrunning the dragons, I said, oh, this is a problem.
Oh my God.
This is the biggest problem.
Drogon left her ass.
Drogon said, look, it's either you, me, mom, and.
See you, bitch.
Yeah. Look, it's like if Brienne.
I did not sign up for this.
If Brienne screams or a dragon screams, I just like wince. I'm like, oh God, it's bad out there. It's fucking terrible out there.
I thought they killed the dragon. I thought they would.
Me too. Which we didn't.
Before he flew off, I thought he was dead.
We didn't see him at the end of the episode, so I'm curious to see if either he's like he ran away and just he's licking his wounds, or he died, or
no, he came back when Jorah died. He like snuggled with him when they were.
Drogon
she was like crying over his dead body.
Yeah, we didn't see Rhaegal.
Comes up and curls around. That's her dragon, right?
And Jorah with the save, like. I mean, died in the friend zone, but damn it, he stood his ground.
R.I.P. to a real.
He's like, I'm hurt.
And he mouthed. I think he mouthed, "I love you" before he died. I thought for sure. I said in the middle of the episode, Dani, you better kiss him. Like, just give him some kind of joy before, because Jorah has been around since the first episode.
Shit, Jorah was around when your dragon and your man left. Like.
Which man? That's the thing. Like, she's had several men, and he's always loved her.
Oh,
her dragon left her this episode, and
he's
John
left her
this episode.
John left her ass too.
All right. I also want to highlight useless ass Bran per the usual.
Oh God!
How long were you warging in them fucking ravens, you asshole?
What the fuck are the ravens gonna do anything? Warg into ghosts or another dragon or something?
Yeah.
But my boy Theon, man, boy Theon was, oh God, just a real ass dude, man. Oh man,
yeah.
It came back full circle.
And the Night King walked into the what's the name of the area again?
Godswood.
The Godswood. Thank you. Walked into the Godswood like he was with his boys rolling up to VIP. I was like, oh damn.
It's like the Reservoir Dogs where they're walking slow motion walk.
Ashley, what you think about Jorah? I mean, what were your thoughts about just seeing Dani get surrounded, Jorah get surrounded, John can't even like walk 5 steps without running behind a rock because of dragon fire?
So John, like my heartbeat didn't even rise when that was going on with John, because I was like, he's gonna be fine. The Jorah thing was kind of, somebody described him to me as, they're like, yeah, he's like the guy that would drive Dani and her boyfriend to the mall. He's just like that kind of dude. He's just like in the friend zone, like always there. What do you want? Okay, yeah, no, I'll drive you. Yeah. So I'm glad that she was there with him. And then Theon, like everybody's, everyone knew Theon was gonna die.
Were you feeling hesitant, or did you think that maybe someone else that you weren't expecting would die in this episode? Was there anyone that you were like, oh shit, I'm feeling?
Varys. When they started getting into the crypts, I was like, please kill Varys.
Oh damn!
Oh no, my Deadpool.
I mean, he's in mine too, but he never is in any danger ever. So I was like, finally,
he survived.
He's just, I don't know.
Ed, what about you? Any characters that you were like, oh, I think they're gonna bite the dust this one?
I thought Tormund and Brienne.
Dude, me too. I thought Tormund was
Jamie.
Yeah, I thought like anybody outside the castle were dead.
Yeah.
No, but I thought Brienne. I didn't think Jamie would, because I think he's got unfinished business.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought Brienne and Tormund would not make it.
So if Theon's deaf, because that's the next scene up, or at least the next major one. I guess he was the last standing Greyjoy and Karstark that was there protecting Bran. Bran looks at him, of course, like snaps back to reality last minute and gives us, that pep talk. You're a good man, he says to Theon, and of course Theon charges to the Night King. I mean, do you guys feel that we got Theon's, retribution? Did he live up to being a hero, or what were you guys' thoughts on his death? Was it symbolic for you in any way, Blythe?
I think it kind of has to be symbolic for his arc, because there was that sort of flashback that he was talking with Catelyn Stark and with Robb Stark, and they were first questioning about, you know, the attempted murder on Bran, and Theon says to Robb, like, look, I'll go into battle with you, and the Maester at the time says, what, are you going to have a fight in the Godswoods? And this is how his arc sort of ends, is it comes full circle that, yeah, he does have that fight in the Godswoods protecting Bran, which he has protected Bran in the past, where he saves him from, you know, those couple of wildlings that came down, and I'm blanking on the other chick's name that ended up becoming like a significant character. But anyways, but that was sort of my come around for Theon, is that he had this long sort of story arc, and then it came full circle back to where he is going to be considered a hero. Cool.
Ashley, what about you? Thoughts on Theon's death?
So the thing about Theon is, like, he, you know, left Yara on the boat about to be killed by Euron not that many episodes ago.
True.
Yeah.
So he just jumped off the boat and was like, all right, you know.
He can get away now.
Yeah, but I mean, now he hasn't been brave for that long. Like, he hasn't been like this, you know, stand-up brave character for that many episodes.
You think it's too quick a turnaround?
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ashley? All right, Ashley, the hot take. Just disrespecting that dead man. Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah.
Ed, what about you,
He could have got up.
Ed, what about you?
I thought it was... that's it. I kind of... yeah, I thought it was a good scene. I thought he would... I honestly thought, because they were really, you know, keeping the shot on him, I thought he was going to kind of come back, you know, and do a one last, you know, and then get totally cut in half by the Night King. But it's a heroic death. That's the death that, you know, like I said, one of the characters, you know, redemption stories. So yeah, I thought it was fine. Yeah, I just thought he'd have like another last charge, because he was, you know, just like looking at him as he's walking towards Bran. I thought he'd have another,
I thought so,
you know, rush from behind type of thing, and then, you know, get really killed.
And we've almost seen the change from Theon to Reek. Like, he didn't want to be known as Reek anymore, and I think we saw him become Reek when he's jumping off the boat, you know, trying to avoid, you know, when his sister gets caught. But he has that one-to-one with Jon, and he says, and Jon tells him, you don't have to choose between being a Stark and being a Greyjoy. And then he has that fight with the Ironborn, and they have that corny, it's kind of a corny fight where he, like, gets kneed in the balls, and he doesn't feel anything, and then he sort of gets baptized in the water. Yeah. So, I mean, as corny as like that scene was, I do think it's great that, you know, a character that I hated sort of has come full circle into becoming a hero that Bran wouldn't have survived without him, because Theon was the last one standing in the Godswoods, and Bran would not be alive without him.
Fair. And I think those characters, the ones that we've seen from like season 1 till now, that have had like a significant arc, so people like Theon, people like Sansa, people like Jaime, I think those deaths will definitely have the most impact. Which at this point, there isn't that many characters that haven't been around since season 1. So it'd be interesting to see who else follows in Theon's steps, and we get that sense of retribution and just coming full circle. Of course, the last scene in this episode, maybe the you know, biggest, definitely shock effect one, is the death of the Night King, who, you know, Arya does that once again, stellar Splinter Cell move, and comes out of nowhere. Which I didn't think that I'd be adding the Night King to my you know, our list of, you know, deaths so soon. I mean, I had a feeling that they would kill him early, but man, not this early.
I didn't think it'd be in episode 3.
No.
I thought it'd be in episode 4. I thought maybe...
Yeah, I thought that would be the cliffhanger.
Right, like you know, the battle would go bad or something, and they would have to escape through the hidden tunnels and the crypts, and then go back to the Riverlands where... or not the Riverlands, but the Iron Islands where, you know, Yara is at. I thought that they would have to hide out there and then wait for the Night King to come there in order to try to kill him. But I think it's just... It's crazy that he was killed. Like the whole series is sort of built up to this battle, and then he's killed in one episode. I thought that was crazy. I didn't think that would happen.
Yeah. Ed, what about you? Did you foresee that? Were you shocked by that?
No, I seriously, like, my hands went up in the air, like, what the fuck? Because at first when she jumped in and he just turns around and stabs her, it's like, oh, well, she's dead too. Great. And then the sword drops, or the dagger drops, and then she turns him into like a big snow cone, just bursts out. And I was like, my mouth was open. I was like jaw dropped. I was not expecting that. Yeah. I was expecting the Night King to get, like a one punch man, like a one hit kill. It was, that was pretty. I was very surprised. Like,
even now, I'm still
first of her, getting there, because he kind of lose track of her, because when she, leaves the room, when she runs off, he kind of. I lost track of her. I didn't even thinking about her in that scene. And then she comes in and kills him. Yeah, it was nuts.
Ooh, Ashley, what about you? Did you foresee that? What were your thoughts on that death?
I mean, I honestly, because 6 episodes, so I was figuring 3 would be the White Walkers, and then the last 3 would be the Iron Throne. But I mean, they had to kill him. They had, like, he just rose everybody up. There's no way they could have fought back against all of this. So he had to die. There's no way they would have survived any longer if he didn't.
Did anyone foresee? Did anyone call Arya killing the Night King, or playing a part, a big role in this, like she did? Did anyone? Life's over here like smirking from ear to ear.
So it's sort of like a history lesson on my Game of Thrones watchage, I guess. I binge watched the first 6 seasons thinking that season 7 was the last one. I didn't know that they had split it up into 2 final seasons.
Oh, yeah.
So I binge watched the first 6 seasons, and after the first 6 seasons, I was like, Aya is definitely going to be a White Walker assassin. And I tweeted it out as soon as I finished the 6 seasons before the 7th season started. And then I was a little pissed off that it was split up into 2 seasons and I would have to wait an entire, couple years in order to get this kind of finale. I thought she would be a White Walker assassin. I didn't know she would be a Night King assassin. And it just makes her arc that much more incredible, because you see how far she's come from season 1 into being this little girl who loves sort of the boyish things or perceive the boyish things, and she gets in trouble for fighting Joffrey, and that sort of leads into a whole bunch of events with the Lannisters and the Starks, and her eventually training with Syrio Forel, which I think you're going to have an interview following this show in order to talk about a little bit of that, which is, it's sort of like great symmetry where it's sort of coming all full circle, where it lines up perfectly from season 1 to this season, and it's really just I think the directors get a lot of flack for not living up to the hype of the books, but damn, they're doing an incredible job for the hands down the best episode I've ever seen in television history.
I gotta say, this one was definitely probably the best Game of Thrones episode I've seen.
Yeah.
And before this, I mean, it was Battle of the Bastards as my all-time favorite, but this one probably gives it a run for its money. I think if I rewatch it again, it'd probably top it over. Ashley, what about you guys? You guys feel the same way? Best episode of Game of Thrones, or high up there? What are your thoughts? Where does it land?
It's pretty high up there. What's so weird is I loved the last episode so much. I watched that episode 3 times just because it was just all about like character interactions. I mean, maybe if I watch this one again, but I tend to, it made me feel so many things strongly that I don't know if I'm going to rewatch it anytime soon.
Ooh, fair. Ed, what about you?
Pretty intense. Yeah, this is up there. I'd have to really think about it, but right now, this is the most impressive show I've seen in the series.
And you know what the difference between my viewing experience between something as definitely intense like this and say Endgame is? With Endgame, I knew that we would have deaths, but I knew that maybe like the bigger characters were safe. Like, wait, I'm sorry, I definitely said that wrong. With Endgame, I was expecting deaths, and none of the deaths in Endgame surprised me. This one, I was uncertain who would die, and I was like, whoever dies, I'm going to be surprised, because they've done such a good job, just from like things like the Red Wedding and many of the other deaths throughout Game of Thrones that you just never know.
Ned Stark.
Yeah, you never know who dies. And when you look at something like Endgame, it's like, no, that character's too big to die a certain way. He's going to die heroic. He's going to die this way. They're not going to catch me by surprise. With this episode, they just built the tension so well. I was like, man, I don't fucking know anymore. It's like Dany could die, and if she dies, it's like, well, that's a damn, like one of the biggest characters. But it's possible, it's possible. And she could die in a way, in any of the major characters, could die in a way that is gruesome, maybe like less than honorable or less than, like...
I thought we'd almost see more deaths this episode.
I did
Significant deaths.
Yeah.
I thought Jamie, Brienne, for sure, were done for. And then some of the secondary characters I thought were absolutely done for. Even like a Gendry or a Podrick. I wouldn't want to see them go, but I thought for sure that they would go. And then there were times during the episode that I'm watching it and I'm like, I don't know who makes it out of this alive. Does everybody die? Like it was that much like of an anxiety.
It was looking
level.
pretty bleak, especially when the crypt,
and
the dead, comes from the crypt. It's like, oh man.
And it makes it sort of tough to like think like, okay, well, is this the best episode of all time? Because I think this episode is so good because it's a culmination of all of the previous seasons and the previous theories and everything leading up to it. But as far as like the rewatchability, I don't know if it's up there with like some of the first few seasons where just the dialogue is so good. And I think that's what I didn't appreciate from episode 2 of this season is that I think I just wanted so much action so quickly that I didn't appreciate the dialogue initially. But going back and rewatching it, Ashley, like you said, you watched it a few times and really appreciated it. Like going back and watching it more, it made me appreciate it because you have that dialogue that you have with the earlier seasons.
Yeah, and you have like that connection with the characters before, the end.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good point.
So last question, and then we'll wrap this episode up. But MVP, who was your MVP character for this episode? And I'm going to throw out a suggestion, all right? Because I feel like
not Theon. You can't say.
No. I want to say not Arya because I feel like we might all say Arya.
I was going to say Theon.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Look, no restrictions. Let's just lead it. Favorite character MVP award that you're going to give, Ashley. Who do you got?
Lady Mormont, for sure.
Lady Mormont. Nice. Okay.
100%.
Fair. I like it. Ed, what about you? MVP.
If it's not the Night King Slayer, then I'd have to go with Lyanna Mormont as well.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm going to go with Sir Beric. Sir Beric is a character that's been around since season 1.
MVP
and
award.
He came around. Wow. He's been around, and he said, last season, the Lord of Light kept us alive for one reason, and he did that point with Jon and pointed to the Night King, and then this season, you sort of you saw it come to fruition. He was the one that made the Hound sort of snap out of his fear of fire and go and save Arya, and it was him and Arya in that scene or him and the Hound that saved Arya in that one scene, and without Sir Beric, the Hound would have not have snapped out of it. Arya wouldn't have been saved from the Whites, and she would not have been able to kill the Night King.
I'm gonna give mine to Theon because of just what we were talking about everything coming full circle, his character arc finally coming to an end, just getting that validation from Bran, like, hey, you're a good man. I think like that was such a beautiful way to just end it. And if it wasn't for Theon stepping up and even literally stepping up on the battlefield, I mean, if he would have fallen sooner,
true,
Bran would have been dead anyways.
True.
So I'll give mine to Theon. It was really cool to see, especially coming off of last episode, him making his stand in front of Sansa and telling her, I'd be honored to fight for the family and protect him. I thought, this was a great payoff. So what do we got? So we got Theon,
Sir
Beric, Lady Mormont for 2. So Lady Mormont wins this episode. I'm going to wrap up by saying earlier today, my phone is blown up right now. Like I've gotten so many.
Wait, so what about the rest of the season? We did our death predictions.
Yep.
How are we at our death predictions?
So that's what I'm pulling up right now. So Earlier today, I asked everyone on the call to send me your top 5 survivors. So the top 5 people that we know for sure, that we feel in our hearts will see the light or will be alive by the end of this episode. So Ashley's top 5 were Tyrion, Sansa, Varys, Arya, and the Hound. And, fortunately, none of those folks are still alive. So Ashley is still in the running. My top 5 were Tyrion, Arya, Samwell, Sansa, and Dany. Still got all those 5. Blythe's Tyrion, Sansa, the Hound, Pod, and Sam, all alive. And Ed, you had Jon, Sam, Varys, Arya, and Bronn. So all of those characters are alive. And this list is on our Instagram page too. If you go to the Shortbox Jacks, you can take a look at it. But we'll try our best after every episode to double check that list and see where we stand. Let's go and wrap up by saying this. Any predictions for the next episode? Does anyone think that we're going to see anyone die in the next episode? Any major plot points that you foresee happening? Ashley, what about you? How about you kick us off?
I mean, they're going to head to King's Landing and do that. I don't think that anyone really big is going to die next episode, but I think they're definitely going to set it up, and I think that episode 5 is going to be insane.
Is the next episode one of the other longest ones, or is that the episode after that? If this was episode 3, is 4 or 5 the longer one?
I'm not sure, but I know that the same director of episode 3, who's also the same director of Battle of the Bastards, is the same director for episode 5.
Okay.
So we should see another battle for episode 5.
It's another big battle, yeah.
I'm thinking, oh
my God.
I like Ashley's train of thought. I'm agreeing with that. I think next episode is going to be strictly setup.
Yeah.
I think it'll mainly be a Cersei and King's Landing focused episode, sort of like how we had the Winterfell one. I think they probably find out through some means that, hey, the Whites have been defeated. The North is looking mad weak. Time to send in the elephants. So I think for sure that one will be a slower episode.
No elephants, though. The Golden Company didn't bring the elephants.
I know. I'm so bummed.
Blythe, what about you? Predictions for next episode?
I didn't know if they would actually take this route, but I'm kind of glad that they did in regards to killing the Night King off in 1 episode versus 2 episodes. Because with killing him off in 1 episode, you leave the greater enemy to Cersei. She is the end-all, be-all enemy of this season or of this series, and I think that that's more relatable than sort of a fantasy evil like the Night King that a lot of even the people of Westeros can't fathom. So I think it's easier to fathom a real enemy such as Cersei, and I think that having her as the ultimate enemy at the end of who you have to beat is more symbolic of this series and more symbolic, I think, of everyday life. That it's not a fantasy evil; it's the real everyday evil that you should be wary of.
You got to stare the truth in the face, right? Ed, what about you?
I'm thinking, like I said, I think we'll see the Golden Company kind of in full force. I'm kind of curious. Clyburn's what he's cooking up. I'm curious about just thinking about, because do we know if there's just the one dragon left? Did Jon's dragon die, or did he just crash?
No, they both lived.
I had no idea.
I'm pretty confident both lived. We just didn't see one of them by the end of the episode.
They just both left their owners crazy, real quick.
But I'm kind of wondering his part in this now, if he has if he's going to turn on Cersei, and basically what other weapons, if there's still wildfire, left, if she didn't use it all, because like so when he unveiled that scorpion, the big crossbow, it was just like it's like, oh yeah, check out what I made, it was last season. So it's I don't know what he's, and plus he's dabbling in kind of the, necromancy and dark arts and stuff. So I'm not sure what element he's going to bring and if he's going to try to be another, factor in this, the Game of Thrones. I just started thinking about that, and just it's a weird little thing with the opening credits where you see the when it's panning through the castle, then you see like the crossbow come up and then the dragon's head, it's like part of the opening credits. So I'm not sure what, besides the Golden Company, he could have, dozens of those things made, those crossbows. So it's, yeah. And then plus I'm thinking that the hit on, Jamie, I'm wondering if Cersei was at a Cersei thing or if it's him doing it behind her back, putting the hit out on, Tyrion and, Jamie.
You think?
Because we don't really see that scene of her telling him to tell, and it could just be just a cut, don't need to say it twice, but that's another kind of thing that just I've thought about the last couple of days. Like, what if he's doing this? And this is part of his kind of coming from the back and kind of sneaking, So just something like that. I'm wondering if they're going to have a little focus on him as well as like what you guys said, it's going to be like a setup for the next battle for the throne, Iron Throne.
Interesting. I like it. Look, it's definitely really late right now, and I want to put this episode out. So if you're listening and you've got an interesting theory, prediction, or if you want to share something or your feelings about this episode, feel free to shoot us an email or a message at theshortboxjack@gmail.com or any of one of our social media pages. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at theshortboxjax, that's JAX. And you can find Blythe Brumley at Blythe Brum on Twitter. With that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap this episode up. But of course, I've got that bonus interview with Miltos Yerolemou. I had a chance to interview him 2 weeks ago at Collective Con. He plays Syrio in Game of Thrones, so thought it'd be mad appropriate interview to throw in there. So enjoy, and we'll catch you guys next week. All right, peace. Shortbox Nation, I am sitting by someone that I was really looking forward to when I walked into Collective Con. I am sitting with Milton Yerolemou. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Yes, awesome. You may know him from Game of Thrones as Syrio Forel, and also from Star Wars Force Awakens, he played a space pirate, a.k.a. a bar patron as well. Syrio, I'm sorry. That's my bad. I didn't mean Syrio.
Listen, you can call me Syrio.
Milton.
I mean, look, there's pictures of me all over the place as
Miltos,
Syrio.
yes. Miltos.
It's an easy mistake to make.
How are you enjoying Collective Con?
I'm having a great time. It's been my first time in Florida.
Oh, welcome.
So I've never been to Florida before, so everything is brand new for me. But yeah, it's been great, and I'm really happy to be here with Richard and Luke and Joe and Tom.
Yeah, they're really fan. Yeah. I got a chance to talk to Joseph and then Luke. They were really, really awesome, man. I mean, and I got a chance to sit in on the Game of Thrones panels. You guys shared some awesome stories, man. So I want to thank you for finding time to come down to Jacksonville, being a part of Collective Con.
I love it. I was just saying to someone just before you turned up that the strange thing is that most of the time we are always working in isolation, We make TV shows and movies and we do theater. I mean, the theater is slightly different because you're performing. Eventually you perform in front of an audience and you get an idea. It's winter is coming.
My back just turned to ice. It's all like chilly in here.
So we kind of do it in isolation. Yeah. So what's really nice about doing conventions because of Game of Thrones is that you get feedback and you get to meet people and see how the stuff that you do that you think is something you do for yourself. I mean, we love the process of making a movie as much as seeing the movie, sometimes more so,
Yeah.
But it's great when you get feedback and it's great when you meet the fans, and it's fantastic to just interact with people and realize that what you do actually has an effect on people.
Wow. So, and you mentioned this isn't your first rodeo. This isn't your first con, right? You've been to a few conventions.
Yeah.
Have you been able to tell the difference in, I guess, like the energy and the excitement in fans with the last season currently being played? Is there a difference? Have you been able to spot it? Or is it always this crazy?
That's a really interesting question. I did a con last year, and all the hype was about why it was about the time when normally Game of Thrones would be being shown, right? And everything, people were so hyped about it because it wasn't on. Let alone when it is on. So they were like, I can't believe it's supposed to be on now and there's nothing to watch. And we're like, why do we have to wait so long for the last season and all of that? So there was hype just because it wasn't on.
Wow.
And of course this year, being here, especially because last weekend we were in Texas doing a convention there, we realized that being at the premiere and watching it with like 300 people was an intense experience. And watching it with people who had been waiting for almost 2 years, that was quite something.
That is awesome.
That was intense.
Wow.
The energy was intense.
So when it comes to, in your opinion, who's got the more dedicated and or hype fan base, Star Wars or Game of Thrones?
I think Game of Thrones beats the Star Wars fan base. The Star Wars fan base. So the Star Wars universe is something that is, has been owned for decades. Remember when the 3 films, the very first, well, you weren't, you're too young. I remember when the first 3 films came out, right? I was a child, but still, I remember when they came out, and I remember the fact that even when the first 3 films came out, they talked about the possibility of it being a trilogy of a trilogy. So that there was going to be 9 films. And we were so stoked about that, but that was just a rumor, and no one ever did anything about it until obviously George Lucas created the prequels, should we say. So in that time, between the original films and the prequels, people wrote novels, people wrote comic books, there were fan theories, the whole universe was like expanded, so that the fans kind of feel like they own it.
Yeah.
Kind of, that's one of the reasons why the controversy over The Last Jedi was so intense, because the fans were like, hang on a minute, is this, I mean, it's split opinion, and, you know, I thought Last Jedi was a fantastic film, but it kind of, you know, people were like, but because they felt they owned it, you know? So that was an interesting thing. The difference with Game of Thrones is that the books, George R.R. Martin's books, have been around for maybe 20 years now, and they are loved and poured over, and those descriptions of that world kind of has cemented in people's imaginations. So the theories are kind of all based in forensic attention to detail. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
Whereas we don't have Star Wars books. We have Star Wars books after the movies were made, but that's different. We had a book. We had a series of books that described a world in such detail that people understood it so well that they could second guess where the writer was going to go next. So that level of dedication and that level of nerddom, I think, really belongs to Game of Thrones more so than Star Wars. Anyway, that's kind of what I think.
No, you provided one hell of evidence and argument. I don't know if I can debate that right now. So speaking about going back to Game of Thrones and the books, how did you prepare for the role of Syrio Forel? You know, the sword master from Bravos that teaches Arya very early on. I mean, how did you go about getting, whether physically in shape or getting ready for the role, or did you go through the books? I mean, how did you go about preparing for that role of Syrio?
So the first time when I heard about the audition, I decided to go and buy the first book. So I read Game of Thrones, or as the book is called, A Game of Thrones, I think. And I read it simply for research, so that I had information for going into the audition. I knew also that they had asked for someone in the casting breakdown, they'd asked for someone who had sword fighting experience, which I could tell them that I had because I'd worked with fight choreographers in theatre quite a lot. I worked at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and in those plays there are a lot of sword fights and kind of close combat weaponry fights. So I knew I had experience doing that, but when I got cast, I realized I needed to work with someone because I had to create a style of movement and fighting that didn't exist.
Wow.
We had to create a water dance that isn't described in the books.
Wow. So this was kind of your brainchild.
Well, it wasn't my brainchild, but that's what I knew I had to do. I had to create a style.
Something unique.
And it couldn't be based on a particular fighting style. So I asked my agent to get in touch with HBO and say, can you get me someone to train with? And they, beyond my wildest dreams, came up with William Hobbs, who just Google that name and you will see his long list of credits since the 70s of all period sword fighting. This guy has choreographed all of that stuff. And they got this man to be my mentor. And for 2.5 weeks, we worked solidly on creating a style for who this character was. And I, of course, I turned up going, so what are the fight moves? You know, what are we going to do? And he was like, no. We should start from a character point of view. I want to know who this person is. I want you to tell me everything you know about this character. And once I understand who this character is, then we will start to find what the style of the movement is and what the style of the fight is going to be.
Wow.
And that was an amazing, just him saying that made me understand something, which is, anyway, he said this to me anyway, you know, as an actor, you want to do the showing off, you want to do the wire work, you want to do stuff that is physically impossible. But the difference is that William said to me, Bill, should I say, William Hobbs said to me, when you're a master, when you are the teacher, you do less. You do absolutely the least possible, because if you are the best at what you do, you have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. You have the whole idea of the words that he says and his philosophy towards how to fight and how to be aware of your situation was all based in kind of Eastern philosophies. I think that's kind of quite obvious. But the whole idea is that never show off. Wow. Showing off is for people who don't care about getting killed. For him, it was all about stillness, complete focus, and being present in the moment. And that stuff is fantastic. And he said also, you know, if you're really good at fighting, you will fight in the most efficient way possible. And since then, learning, as I've learned, I mean, I do sword fight classes at conventions, like I do the water dance. I teach people how to choreograph their own fights. But it's always a thing that I go back to. It's like, you know, the people who are the best at the stuff that they do the least of it.
Wow.
A teacher will never show off his skills. That's why it's so great. I mean, it's great, but it's also a bit rubbish. Why, when we see Yoda in the original movies, he's this decrepit old little alien who barely can walk. But when he pulls the plane, the X-Fighter out of the
swamp,
you realize just how powerful he is. And that is what I love about it. It's the misdirection.
That's really well said. So I've got to ask, it sounds like you had this really unique experience learning how to get the sword fights, kind of getting into the head of Syrio Forel. How did you take it when you got the script and you had to read your death scene? So early on, too.
Yeah, I know, but this is showbiz. It's like, I kind of accepted it. I realized it. I was just pleased that I had, I think initially we had just 2 scenes in the two episodes I was going to be in. But ultimately, Dave and Dan, the creators, said to me that we need more. In the books, Syrio is talked about rather than you see what he does. Okay. And Dave and Dan said, we need to put another scene in. And then they wrote that scene, in episode 6 of season 1, where it doesn't belong in the books. You don't see it in the books. It's been created simply for the TV show where Syrio talks about the gods and how there is only one God and his name is death. And there is only one thing we say to the god of death, and that is not today. And that doesn't belong in the books. Yeah. That was a complete from the imagination of the writers and the creators. And I think it's kind of, it's my favorite scene. And it's so funny that it doesn't exist in the books, but it just goes to show you how clever those guys are and how even when they create something that isn't based in the books, it
just fits in.
It just fits in. It fits in.
Yeah.
Of course, and it becomes something very powerful and quite profound. So yeah, that stuff is, that's really exciting. That stuff.
Do you watch the show more or less since your character exited, and so early on in season 1? Did you watch the new episode with everyone else in the world around?
Yeah, I did. I was in a bar with about 300 people watching the first episode. That was really intense.
That sounds like a way to watch it.
Yeah, listen,
really cool.
The great thing about Game of Thrones, the reason why I think it's such a phenomenon, is that even at the time when we had stopped tuning in to watch TV programs because we all stream our favorite things that we watch now, even at that time when people have just stopped watching television in the way that we used to, Game of Thrones make people come together and watch them together. There's communities based on them making parties and having death pools and all of these things whereby people work and experience it together. Wow. And I think that's amazing because that happens everywhere I go. Even friends of mine say that they don't watch it by themselves. They watch it with their friends. They invite friends around and they have a Game of Thrones evening, and they have to watch it when it gets broadcast, because if you don't, then it's over, because you will find out what happens in the episode
whether you like it or not.
You will be really upset with yourself.
Did you get to keep any memorabilia from the show?
Nothing. I didn't even get. We kept breaking that stick. Mm-hmm. in the fight with the Lannisters. They kept breaking it over and over, so there was loads of cast-offs, and I really wanted to take a little broken piece of sword home with me, but no. All of that stuff is all locked down. They have exhibitions all the time, so every little thing that you use is preserved for posterity.
Oh, wow. I was going to ask, what is it? I mean, do you have a memory from your time filming, or your something about the cast that you hold on to, or your favorite memory after everything that you went through filming it, that gets brought up watching the series or even talking about it now?
I think it's more to do with the memory. I funnily enough, I bumped into Alfie Allen in the airport. He was on his way back from LA. I think he'd just been to the premiere, and I was on my way out to the States. And we had just met just for like 15 minutes. And the one thing I said to him is, I really remember that first night where we all stood outside the hotel that we were all staying in Belfast. Mm-hmm. We hadn't shot anything yet, but we had all turned up and we'd had the first reading. We'd read the first 3 episodes all together.
Stand by. I said to him, I really remember that evening. We were all so fresh-faced. We were all smoking. We were so nervous. We were all so nervous. We were racked with nerves because we knew we were embarking on something that we didn't know about. That was obviously a big deal because HBO was making it, but we had no idea. And that memory, I remember, we were all standing outside and we just were talking about what it might be. And we had no idea. Wow.
And I really remember that. I remember it so vividly. I remember who was there. I remember what we were doing and what we said, but it was, and that's really what I hold on to. I hold on to that and the fact that, that was the calm before the storm.
So speaking about some of the projects that you're working on now, what are you doing now outside of, ever since that you've left Game of Thrones? I can only imagine people still come up and you're Syrio, I mean, but what are you working on now?
So I just, I've got an episode in the new season of The Crown.
Nice.
Season 3, which will be coming out, maybe at the end of this year. I'm not quite sure. They don't really tell us. So, we find out, when it's ready to go. So I've been doing that. I literally have just finished about 10 days ago, filming, the sequel to The Hitman's Bodyguard in London with Samuel L. Jackson and, Ryan Reynolds and Selma Blair.
That's awesome.
which was really awesome because it's quite funny. You come to conventions and you see people and they're like, they geek out about meeting you and they get nervous and, like excited. I guarantee you, I had to play a high status character who was trying to kill, I'm not going to give anything away. I just played a high status character who was trying to kill Samuel L. Jackson. If you know anything about that movie or the first movie, that's kind of a given, right? That's not giving anything away. But I had to do it. I was doing it to Samuel L. Jackson and was all in my brain. I was just going, oh my God, that's Samuel L. Jackson, man. He's like, I'm talking to him.
How can you not fanboy over Samuel L. Jackson? Come on.
and so, I was very excited about that, and I think it's going to be fun. So, that's the most recent thing I've been doing.
Awesome. And where can people stay in touch with what you got going on? Are you on Twitter or social media?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and you can find me under my name, Miltos Yerolemou.
Awesome. Miltos, I want to say thank you so much for finding time to talk with me. Enjoy the rest of your Collective Con weekend, man.
Thank you so much.